All right, the world's deadliest theme park, the story of Action Park. I feel like we definitely didn't see this because this was like 5 months ago, but I feel like I might have heard about Action Park before. Have we watched this? I don't know. I don't recognize any of these things. Like, I scanned the video like this, and I don't recognize anything, so I don't think we've seen it.
Action Park. An infamous...
A lot of you guys are saying you've been there, but this was in the, like, 80s, chat. You guys didn't go to Action. Is Action Park still a thing?
Experiment that injured thousands, hospitalized hundreds, and killed half a dozen.
The most dangerous theme park time. The owner was like, I'm not going to hassle the kids with a bunch of rules. I'm just going to leave safety up to them.
Eugene Mulvihill's Action Park was a hugely popular and much-loved New Jersey attraction, remembered fondly
New Jersey?
For its experimental and thrilling rides, but also for ending in...
What the f... That was a... Bro, you see that loop-to-loop? Oh, hell no. You throw a big guy down that tube, he ain't making it up that loop. He ain't making it up that. Then what happens? If you don't, when he falls back down, I don't think anybody's making it up that. And that, bro, I don't think that you're gaining enough speed here to fully vertical spin.
There. As you can see, it was like extreme sports. They nicknamed it Traction Park.
A slight alteration of its official slogan sums it up quite well. Action Park, where you're the center of the accident. In today's video, we're going to dive into the strange world of America's deadliest amusement park.
I mean, how many people have to die at an amusement park for them to shut it down? How many people have died at, like, Six Flags? There's been 99 deaths at Six Flags. Most of them were at 13 of them were at Great Adventure, the highest. Then Kings Island and Magic Mountain.
On the 26th of May 1978, businessman Eugene Mulvihill stood admiring a creation he hoped would transform his business forever. Gene, as he was known, owned a company called Great American Recreation, which crucially operated a ski resort in the Vernon Valley and Great Gorge skiing areas of Vernon Township, New Jersey. Gene really wanted to address an inevitable difficulty of running a ski resort business. During the summer off-season, when the snow has long disappeared, your resort turns into little more than a regular grass hill, and as the snow goes, so does a significant majority of your business. Ski resorts have...
Yeah, but that's why every ski resort has a fucking water park, dude.
...had for some time been experimenting with opening summer attractions to make the land bring in revenue during this off-season, and Gene wanted to do the same. Following the example of other resorts, in 1976 he installed foot alpine slide down one of the steeper trails, and by 1978 added two...
This shit looks terrible. You know the most anticlimactic shit ever? You ever been on like a potato sack slide? Those are so ass. That's like that fucking boof shit, dude. Going to like a county fair and they give you a potato sack for like a fucking metal slide and it's so slow and boring.
2 water slides and a go-kart track. The result was a collection of attractions that became known as Vernon Valley Summer Park, which would open that May. This made it one of the first water parks in America, and over the following 2 decades would grow to 75 separate rides under its rebranded name Action Park. But as well as its massive size...
I hate waiting at water parks at the top for like somebody that's slow as shit to fucking get off the ride. Like, if I was one of the people that, like, waves people on, oh, I'd be letting everybody know. I'd say, you better get your ass off this fucking ride the second you get at the end of this tube, because I'm sending somebody your way 5 seconds after you fucking go. You're on a fucking shot clock here, pal. You're gonna hear them approaching you. It's gonna be like you're in a fucking horror film. So you better make yourself a little more aerodynamic, buddy, because they're going to be right behind you.
Action Park was unique in one very particular way. As his son Andy Mulvihill put it, Gene didn't want to do the same old shit, where you just get strapped into something or it twirls around. He wanted to take the idea of skiing, which is exhilarating because you control the action, and transfer it into an amusement park. There's inherent risk in that, but that's what made it fun. This simple philosophy of putting the guest in control made the park hugely successful, but would also become its biggest controversy. Action Park's first ride was coincidentally one of its all-time most dangerous. The 2,700-foot sledding track was constructed out of a mixture of concrete, fiberglass...
Oh my god, a concrete track And it's so thin, you fucking fly off of that going 40 miles an hour. Oof.
Patrons would slide down the winding track on a small sled using only a handbrake to slow their descent. Injuries were atrociously frequent as patrons were sent down without much prior warning of
Oh, I would so purposely bump into somebody, dude. Oh my God. Like, you ever been go-karting and it says on the back of every go-kart, don't run into somebody behind you? Right at the end, always just fucking bam, just slam right into some. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to.
the high likelihood their sled
Yeah, especially if it's your friend in front of you.
jump
Oh, dude, you're fucking slamming right into the back of them.
tracks on tight corners if they fail to apply the required amount of braking or lean to distribute their weight properly. Owing to poor maintenance practices, the sleds
That's dangerous. You're sitting on the slide and you just got your toddler in between your legs while you're fucking holding the handbrake. Oh my God. That kid is flying off that ride.
braking system would really only offer two settings, extremely slow, and a speed described by a former employee as death awaits. The result was patrons usually wearing only bathing suits and most definitely without any helmets or protection, would regularly be thrown off their sled, suffering severe abrasions and broken limbs. Between 1984 and 1985, the slide alone was responsible for 14 fractures and 26 head injuries. In fact, it's reported that at the end of a busy day, staff would find certain sections of the slide coated in a reddish sheen of blood and shredded skin. Staff kept a magic potion.
What? You're going down and you just see blood splotches?
On hand to spray down severely carpet burned patrons. An employee was ejected at such a high velocity that the resulting injury gouged the back of his legs and butt so badly that he needed 200 stitches. And finally, just to add insult to injury, because the Alpine slide traveled directly under the
You know what's wild too is they probably just signed a contract before they went on it, so they just can't sue them.
park's former ski lift, those riding would routinely get spat or urinated on from above. The slide
What? People would be peeing on them? Yo, that's not even the park's fault, though. That's not even the park's fault. That's the clientele. The clientele are peeing on the people going down the slide. Holy shit. Okay, maybe spitting, but, like, just because you're being a dick. But, like, you're whipping out your genitals and peeing on ongoing people.
Alpine Centre, one of the three main sections of Action Park, the other two being Motor World and Water World, which housed the vast majority of
I would ditch the car. I would full brake, hop out of the car, and then run to the end of the fucking... Oh my God. You know the fear in their eyes? If you did that, they pee on you, you full halt your fucking car, and then run to the end of the ski lift and just fucking wait. And you're just standing there, they're slowly just approaching you, and you're just like, just eyeing them down. What would they do? Like, now that like, they're just dead.
of the park's rides. The nearby skateboard park was closed after only a single season due to inadequate build quality. The skating bowls were separated from each other by pavement, which in many cases did not match the height of the bowl edge, meaning boards would get stuck on the lip. A former employee commented it was responsible for so many injuries that we covered it up with dirt and pretended it never happened. And in fact, some of the rides were so dangerous they never even managed to open to the public at all. The Bailey Ball was such an attraction.
Oh my God, what the fuck is this? They just spin it around. It just has wheel. Dude, this looks like somebody made it in their backyard. Like over a year.
Essentially a large steel sphere with industrial roller wheels bolted all around the outside, creating what can only be described as a replica World War II era anti-submarine mine. The idea was a human rider would be secured inside and rolled downhill on a PVC pipe track. However,
and they would be spinning in a metal ball. Would there be like foam pads in the midst of it?
when the state inspector arrived to see the ball in action, the summer heat had expanded the piping, causing the ball, with a man inside it, to fly off the tracks, rolling down the steep slope uncontrolled and traveling straight through the parking lot across Route 94 and finally coming to rest in a swamp. It's said that
Okay, I hope he's okay. But that, like, literally sounds like a Jackass film, like, stunt. They go him down the ride, and he starts just beelining it towards a highway. Like, yeah, some Looney Tunes shit.
the inspector watched silently as the ball came to a rest before prompting
And he's just sitting there, the inspector, just dead silent, just with a clipboard. Oh. Oh, okay. That wasn't supposed to happen.
leaving without saying a word. Management abandoned
He just left. He just walked out.
this masterpiece. After the first season, in 1978, Gene sought to expand his park, believing the best way to do this was, quote, by legalizing drunk driving, in a collection of attractions known as Motor World. The first ride of note here was the Grand Prix track, featuring 3/4 size.
Yo, why? How is it legal that you could ride golf carts while inebriated? Oh, it says it's not. Okay, but every single person on a golf cart at a golf course is drinking and driving. They have cart girls that come around and give you shots while you're golfing. It's because it's private property. Even then, I don't know. But I know motherfuckers are hammered.
If that wasn't concerning enough, the park operated an alcohol drinks bar only a few meters away. Patrons would ride these races drunk and often underage using a fake driver's license. One employee actually broke into the park in the middle of the night, stole a Lola Racer, and disabled its inbuilt speed limiter before taking it for a joyride down Route 94. Police reportedly pursued the employee at over 90 miles per hour for several miles before
Those cars went 90 miles an hour without a limiter.
he was apprehended. Similar to the Lola Racers were the super go-karts. Drivers were not required to present a license here, which would not
That guy's in a fucking Speedo.
be so concerning were it not for the fact that the inbuilt speed limiter could be disabled by wedging in a tennis ball, enabling patrons to fly around at speeds reaching 50 miles an hour. A particularly unique injury that would occur here is that because the carts ran on petrol engines, the fume inhalations would regularly make patrons sick, and sometimes the gas caps would fly off the carts.
I would love that, though. I'm sorry. I love the smell of gas. Oh, I love the smell of gas. If it was just straight, just like fuel, I'd be going, just fucking sniffing that shit while I'm driving. Just, you're just getting high off the gas fumes.
As people drove along, splashing out the liquid fuel and hitting drivers further behind. And
I just start huffing the engine right before we go. I'm like, hold up, can you give me a minute? Okay, I think I'm ready.
Kind of Mario Kart style attack. The super speedboats suffered a very similar issue. A tamer attraction nearby called bumper boats took the idea of hitting cars into each other and then put that on water. The problem was not with the bumper boats ride itself, more that patrons would treat the faster super speedboats as bumper boats, smashing the flimsy boats into each other at excessive speeds. Anyone too tall would have to dangle their legs over the side, and you can imagine just how regularly this caused lower
dangle your legs over the side like you would have to fucking like sit like with your legs over the lip of the boat.
Extremity fractures. The engine fumes also coated the lake water in a kind of oily sheen, burning and irritating guests unlucky enough to fall into the water after a high-speed collision.
Okay, this is so dangerous, but at the same time, bro, I wish they had like a cool version of this today that wasn't dangerous, because this looks so fucking fun. You're telling me you just pay like $10 and I could just go and operate a fucking boat at like 30 miles an hour in the middle of like a fucking lake in the mountains?
Induced delirium was the reward for anyone who managed to stay inside the boat. And finally, another noteworthy attraction for Motor World was one of the park's most popular attractions called Battle Action Tanks, featuring little mobile tanks that fired tennis balls from a cannon.
Featuring little mobile tanks that actually shot full-on explosive projectiles at each other. The owner states that with the customers having the control over each other, he didn't think anything would go wrong.
If you shot another tank's hit point, it would temporarily disable movement, and static cannons placed on the arena's perimeter also allowed guests standing outside to fire.
I don't understand how this is dangerous, though.
This particular attraction was one of the staff's least favorite to guard because of the high likelihood of getting pelted with tennis balls that would fire at over 90 miles an hour while trying
never mind.
to perform maintenance in the area. But
yeah, you'd be aiming for the workers, let's be real. I understand them being upset. It's like when you go to a driving range and you try to hit the golf cart that's picking up the golf balls. You'd see the worker out there. You're in your little tank, and you see the worker come to sweep the balls away. Boom, boom, boom. You just hit him. He fucking runs away.
But finally, the most loved and most infamous section of rides were gathered into an area known as Waterworld. Undoubtedly the most dangerous, these were the rides that would ultimately lead to the tragic downfall of Action Park. Probably the single most recognizable.
I mean, this just looks so, dude, I just don't understand. I don't understand how they tested this and then proved that little. I understand it's like a high incline, but for you to go a full fucking loop.
Of all these rides was the Cannonball Loop, a fully enclosed water slide with a unique, completely vertical loop at the end. You tend not to see these at water parks for the perhaps unsurprising reason that shooting people out of a vertical loop is not necessarily conducive to their survival. The ride itself was built kind of by the eyeball, using some nearby car factory workers who had recently been made redundant as labor. When the first test dummies went down, it was reported.
Am I crazy, or does that bit right there look flat? Like, I feel like you're just gonna get like wedged into the barrel there, and this tube looks very small. I feel like anybody over like 180 pounds just would not fit in this.
That one came back missing its head to convince real humans to go.
What? They tested it with dummies, and one came back decapitated. And they said, yeah, let's fucking release this shit.
Down, the park offered employees $100, and eventually Eugene's son Andy was the first
$100 to go down the ride.
Person to do so. But
in the 80s, how much is that today? Like $300? $100 in 1980 today. $359 to go down it one time.
Crashing down on either side. Nosebleeds and facial and back injuries were extremely common, so much so that the ride was only open for a single month before the state's advisory board forced it shut, considering it too dangerous. Some early riders were even coming back with lacerations to their bodies, and when the ride
oh my god,
it was closed to determine what caused this, teeth that had been knocked out of previous riders' mouths were now lodged in the foam-lined interior walls, slicing.
Bro, so you had other people's teeth that came out of their mouth that were getting other people. Why would anybody go on this ride? Okay, I understand they didn't shut it down, but are these, like, are the people that went on this ride fucking stupid too, like, as well? Like, you're telling me there's people coming back with broken bones, missing teeth, and then you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go down this ride. And then you come back with a fucking gash just straight down your arm.
Open the next riders as they passed through. But the Cannonball Loop was by far from the only crazy installation. The Tarzan swing was a steel arch suspended from a cable.
This doesn't seem that dangerous to me.
Over a spring-fed
as long as they fucking let go.
Natural pool. Patrons waited in long lines for the chance to swing out and jump off into the water below. Because this spring was fed by mountain water, the temperature rarely exceeded 50 degrees, a fact most only came to appreciate as their bodies immediately went into hypothermic shock upon entering the water, where they would need immediate rescue after being unable to pull themselves back out. Another danger was if you
I've been in natural springs, and they're cold as fuck, but another thing here, if you're in the Poconos, or they're saying North Jersey in the mountains, or in the mountains, and they say, hey, this is mountain water, and it's 60 degrees outside, and you're going, huh, mountain water is probably pretty cold, right? Probably colder than the air, right? And then you jump in and you're surprised that the water's not 85 degrees.
Held on for too long, you risked crashing into the concrete platform at the far side of the pool. Something
that is dead ass their fault, though. Like, I understand all these businesses today have to make it like straight up no user failure. Like, even if they're an idiot, they can't get injured because, like, people will be stupid and hurt themselves. But, like, you're going on a fucking triangle, like, swing, and if you don't let go, like, no shit, you're gonna get hurt. That's like going on a rope swing attached to a tree and just not letting go and then slamming back into the fucking tree.
Thing that broke many ankles and toes, but that's just a skill issue, really. In fact, unsuspected
yeah. W creator. See, you know.
Danger was a prevalent
user error
theme of Waterworld. At the Aquascoot, patrons would skim across a shallow pool of water only slightly deeper than a puddle in places, using a plastic sled in the same manner as skipping a stone over a lake. However, if you lean too far forward or back, the edge of the sled would bite into the water.
Yeah, and then your head probably smacks the ground. Okay, see, this is not a user error.
Water catapulting the rider's head directly forward into the shallow puddle, resulting in serious injuries. Even if you avoided this, often the attendant would have already let the next rider down, slamming straight into the back of you.
deep as a puddle. This kid is up to his nipples. Okay, I don't know. Deep as a puddle.
The collection of raft-based artificial whitewater rides were also notoriously dangerous. Roaring Rapids was built to look like a natural river, complete with jagged rocks and sharp
Oh, in some places, yeah, probably near the end.
overhangs that fractured femurs, collarbones, and dislocated knees and
Oh,
shoulders.
yeah, no, this just looks like a bad idea.
One of the courses featured a toilet bowl which flushed riders down into a dark tunnel. A tunnel lined with foam
And somebody probably drowned here.
padding that would often tear away from the walls, narrowing the hole and causing human riders to clog the toilet. Attendants would then have to quickly turn off the water.
Oh my god, in the pitch black? Oh my god, fuck no. I would immediately start punching, dude. I would start freaking out. If I get clogged into a pitch black hole and there's water rushing and other people coming down, oh, I'm gonna start screaming.
Water supply to stop those congested patrons from drowning. Surf Hill was another infamous attraction. Patrons would slide down a wet sloped surface on foam mats at high speed, landing in a very shallow puddle. The barriers between lanes were minimal and people frequently collided with each other on the way down or at the end. The 7th lane was known as the backbreaker due to a special bump midway intended to allow jumps and splashdowns into a larger puddle. It also had a reputation for causing serious injury, but both employees and spectators much loved this ride for one very particular quirk. You see, Surf Hill was especially good at separating women from their bikini tops. Women would stand up at the end of the surf and, disorientated from hitting the plastic ridges at high speeds, wouldn't realize that they had emerged significantly less covered than they began the ride. A nearby snack bar was installed specifically to take advantage of this view.
The business purposefully did that, where people would just sit there and eat and watch, like, women lose their tops on this ride.
However, a single ride stood out from all the others. A ride so deadly it quickly became
The grave pool. I think all wave pools are stupid and also not fun. I've been to a lot of water parks, and any wave pool is just, if it's like a dead day, they're fun, right? But wave pools, crowded, smelly ass people. I'm going to be real here. Not the best clientele in a wave pool, okay? I don't want to diss people in general, right? But the people that love the wave pool at water parks, usually the people that are covered in Band-Aids and they fall off and they have like open wounds, or it looks like they haven't showered, or they're just like, they can't swim, and they're like, for some reason in something that's like, you know, very dangerous. Like, why are you in a fucking wave pool? Like, I don't know. It's just like the people that are in wave pools, and they're always packed, and then you're running into other people, and it's like, I don't want a stranger just fucking like slamming into me while we're in the water. No.
1981 season. The pool was 100 feet wide.
Normally I drink in the parking lot. Wow, that's degenerative. I just said that. Me and my friends, okay, it's not just me. Normally I drink in the parking lot, if I'm being honest. At a water park, I'm so serious. No, normally I drink at the water park. It's cheaper. The alcohol at water parks is very expensive, okay? So you pull up, park the car, turn the car off, slam back 5 shots, and then walk in.
100 to 1,000 people at once. This was a seriously large and deep wave pool. The waves were generated by underwater machines for 20 minutes at a time with 10-minute breaks and could reach a whopping 1 meter high. The comparative calm of the water in break periods contrasted with the severity of those waves in a relatively deep pool that got deeper towards the machine end, meant that patrons would often get sucked much deeper into the pool than they intended, only realizing their mistake when they were in over their depth with nowhere to stand up. Because of the unrestricted entry, the water would often be covered in a dense packed layer of floating rings, which would keep people trapped underwater if they got swept down. The dangerous conditions would often cause people to crowd at the relatively few ladders to escape. 12 lifeguards were on duty permanently, and on high traffic weekends, as many as 30 people would need to be rescued from drowning. For comparison, a regular pool lifeguard will usually make 0 or a single rescue
Yeah, I feel like most lifeguards just do nothing,
per year. In fact, when a consultant
which is ideal.
lifeguard arrived to make recommendations to improve safety, he was so overwhelmed by the severity of the conditions, he simply disappeared and never returned. And out of the hundreds of near drownings, on 3 separate occasions, the wave pool would prove to be fatal. In July of 1982, a 15-year-old boy named George Lopez would drown. 2 years later, 20-year-old Donald DePass, and finally, in July 1987...
See, this is what I'm talking about, though, bro. Does this look fun to you guys? You see how many fucking people are here? Like, this is your little group, and then there's somebody that's literally like 6 inches to your right.
An 18-year-old
Like, it's just annoying.
Gregory Grandchamps. These were not the only deaths at Action Park. The first reported death was in 1980 when 19-year-old George Larson Jr. was riding the Alpine slide after hours. His car
After hours? What, like when it was dark outside?
the tracks, and when ejected, George's head struck a rock. He died from his injuries 8 days later in hospital. Then on the 1st of August 1982, only 2 days after the drowning of George Lopez, 27-year-old Jeffrey Nathan was riding in an attraction we actually have.
And what happens? And like when George Lopez died and drowned in the water park, do they close the whole water park? Or do they just go, do they evacuate the wave pool for fucking 30 minutes and then just let people back in? Like, I would want to leave. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't you want to leave? If you were at a water park, not even at the wave pool, and then there's like a siren and you're like, somebody just died, I would go, I kind of don't want to be here anymore.
Haven't covered yet, called the kayak experience, which despite sounding and being...
If it was like an old person had a heart attack, different, right? Because it's like, okay, they just died of like health issues. But if it was like, oh, they died on a ride, I'm fucking dipping.
Experience was an artificial whitewater kayak run powered by underwater fans that agitated the water to provide the current. Frequently, kayaks would tip over or get lodged among the concrete rocks, meaning patrons would have to step out of the kayak in order to right it again. When Jeffrey stepped out, his foot touched a grill covering one of those electrified fans. A 19-ampere current passed into his body and caused him to go into cardiac arrest. He later died in a nearby hospital. And finally, sometime during 1984, a man died after suffering cardiac arrest, allegedly caused by the shock of cold water in the pool beneath the Tarzan swing. The water that day was believed to be
the cold fucking water caused him to have a heart attack.
At this point, let's go a little deeper into how and why Action Park was so dangerous and how it managed to continue running for so long. Firstly, many of the staff attendants were teenagers and poorly, if at all, trained. Many were under the influence of alcohol while working, and training was never taken particularly seriously. The former security director, Jim Desai, got the job at age 21. They cared little for enforcing the rules, and considering the attitude of at least quite a few of the patrons, that's not entirely surprising. Sometimes physical altercations occurred between visitors or each other and staff. There was often physical...
Well, yeah, because it's also their summer job, and they're just trying to fuck around and make money.
Disparity in favor of the patrons, and the teenage attendants didn't feel they had the power to discipline adult guests and would struggle to enforce the rules. This was definitely exacerbated by the availability and prevalence of alcohol on site. Beer was sold pretty much everywhere. The drinking age rules were enforced in a particularly lax manner. The generally short distance between many of these kiosks and the rides involving operating motor vehicles with no safety equipment in a bathing suit really set people up for a rough time. It's fair to say that because Action Park was closer and slightly cheaper than the neighboring Six Flags Great Adventure Park, many of the patrons were from lower income communities who had less opportunity to learn how to swim. And the fact that the park was advertised heavily to the Spanish and Polish communities nearby, even though that there were no translated instructions, did set the park up for some trouble. There was a fundamental clash between how people viewed Action Park and...
Wait, so they didn't even have signs in different languages?
What it intended itself to be. See, Gene's philosophy was that Action Park existed in a similar way a beach does. If someone swims out at a beach and drowns, it's a tragic accident, but there is more of a perceived onus on the swimmer for going out and making bad decisions and getting beyond their depth. Dying on a roller coaster, however, does feel somewhat different. You're kind of strapped and there's no skill involved in staying alive on a roller coaster. But it's been suggested that many of the patrons took that roller coaster attitude to Action Park and held not enough regard for their safety in the face of prevalent dangers because they never expected to need a level of control.
Well, yeah, because most other water parks, it's just go down the slide and you do nothing and you're safe.
Over the danger to stay safe. People just didn't realize that the wave pool was a genuine threat to life if used incorrectly. And
I'm used incorrectly, dude. This looks like you're in a fucking hurricane in the ocean.
the lifeguards
This ain't even a wave pool. It's going in all directions.
regularly had to rescue people who jumped into the deep end without actually being able to swim. And again, turning to how
I mean, come on, though. I mean, come on, though. They don't know how to swim, and they jumped in the deep end of a wave. I would say the wave pool looks very unsafe. Yeah, if you're not a great swimmer, different. But you're telling me you don't know how to swim and you jumped in in 8 feet of water.
poor safety record, there are actually multiple interesting contributing factors. Because many of the rides were pioneering at the time, often built out of wild imagination as opposed to stringent engineering and testing, it was difficult for the regulatory authorities to control Action Park's rides. Especially in the early days, if a person survived a test run and nothing visually was falling apart, that was considered adequately safe. It's probably not a huge leap to also say that a special relationship existed between Action Park and the state, as the park was only ever fined once in its operating history.
Well, because it probably also brought the state a lot of money.
In fact, there's a humorous anecdote that when the local government complained about the high demand for ambulances generated by Action Park, Gene simply bought the local hospital a new fleet of vehicles. Accident and injury reporting was often not done correctly or at all, and in cases where a claimant sought liability for injury, the park's legal attack dog attorney would viciously fight tooth and nail. In fact, it became difficult for victims to hire legal representation from the local lawyers purely because they all knew just how hard Action Park would fight every single claim through to trial. This was quite unusual for a business, but this is where we get to the downfall of Action Park. Action Park wasn't forced closed, it actually went bankrupt. GAR simply couldn't contend with paying for everyone who got injured there. As one litigant alleged,
Oh, so he did get fined for people that got injured.
in the early 1990s, there were over 2,400 active or past litigants who were seeking compensation against GAR. It turned out that the reason Action Park fought so hard to avoid paying was simply because they had no insurance. It's surprisingly expensive to insure for rides that have a tendency to maim and kill, so Gene came up with a pretty ingenious solution. He just
don't pay it.
set up his own fake insurance company called London and World
No.
and insured Action Park for nominal cost. He then did something really crafty and underwrote his fake insurance company with an actual.
That has to be illegal.
It was a clever workaround that avoided Gene needing to pay any premiums while still technically operating with some coverage. Not surprisingly, the government were not happy to find this out, but Gene did make the argument he paid out of his own pocket whenever someone got injured. And by February 1996, the constant legal attacks culminated with the creditors who had taken on their $14 million debt petitioning the company to force it into bankruptcy. And a year later, in 1997, they announced the cessation of all operations. What followed was, in short, a changing of hands between multiple owners, modifications, closures, to produce a much tamer version of the original Action Park. Many of the ride's most dangerous attractions were either removed completely, buried, or made significantly tamer. The Action Park that ran for 2 decades was no more. A huge reason why Action Park continued for so long was simply because it was loved by a great many people. In fact,
oh yeah, dude, if you're not getting injured, it is very fun. You know, these rides do look more interesting than most water parks even today.
Made the argument that although a lot of people were injured and, well, killed sometimes, they did serve millions and millions of customers every year who had a great experience. Gene's fundamental ethos was to put people in control of the action, and this unique
I've never even seen some shit like this at water parks where you're able to jump this high.
experiment created great memories for a lot of people. The bumps and injuries were often considered a source of pride and proof that you had survived Action Park. But thanks to woke, children these days pretty much will never get the chance to experience the sheer joy of entering cardiac arrest halfway down an artificial water chute composed entirely of rebar concrete and exposed wiring. And I think that's a great shame. Action Park is a unique relic of a long gone pre-health and safety era of history that could never realistically be replicated today. If you enjoyed this video and want to dive in any further, I'd highly recommend Andy Mulvihill's book, Action.
No, it is actually a really good fucking video though. I actually really enjoyed that. We've heard about Action Park before very briefly, but I didn't even know half of those fucking rides existed. But yeah, W video.